Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 193. We have a listener suggested topic today. We're going to talk about coming out flat, not playing your best, and things that we can do to help avoid that. Before we get into that topic, though, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company. Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount. And again, make sure you take advantage of that EFP20 discount. It helps to support the podcast, and it's going to save you that additional 20% on an already very affordable but super high producing product. So Anderson Bat Company, make sure you use that EFP20 discount. Also, if you want to help support the podcast, become a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We're talking about $5, $10, or $20 a month. 2022 was good to us, but we need 2023 to gain a little bit of momentum. We need to still add a few more people if we want to keep this podcast alive. And so if you're in a position where you can, if you see value in what we're doing, go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch and become a patron. So, Don, we've all been there. You know you should win. You know you have the superior team. You know your team is more talented than and should be expecting to be successful today, but for whatever reason, we come out flat. We don't play our best game. We just struggle to reach our potential. And our listener, Dave, is experiencing that with their team. They're having a lot of success, but a lot of the games that they're losing are those, how did we lose that game kind of games?
No, it's kind of a phenomenon, but it's a real thing when we're talking about athletics. If we come out flat, there might be things that we can do going into it to try and create an environment to spark a flame, to get some enthusiasm going for that next ball game. But it's weird to watch, when we have long layoffs or a layover in between the games where activities get so distracting that it's kind of hard to turn it back on,
right,
to get everybody back in line or get focused again. And I think having a routine for us as a group could be an important thing to get everybody's minds channeled back into, what the next task is at hand, because, in between the games, we have so many different distractions, whether we're watching other ball games, whether we're going doing family things, whether we're going to get a bite. There's just such a big variety. We kind of have to refocus or recalibrate everybody. And as a coach, if we can have a routine that we start again, not like a full warm up, but to me, whether we're getting everybody in a group and kind of recapping the last game, it's like, hey, Tori, you made an amazing catch there in that last game, and make everybody kind of visualize or dream about, wow, that was amazing when you made that diving catch. And we could say, Stan, that was just a really timely double that you hit in the gap, and scored those extra runs to get us that big win. Or somebody that had a really good pitching outing, and kind of get everybody thinking and dreaming about the things that we want to try and get back on the field and do. I think, having a routine or a regiment as a group, I think, can be helpful for that.
Right. Well, one of the things that it's just a mystery, because we know that it happens all the time, whether it's at the professional level or all the way down to the lowest of entry level sports, that player performance and their focus and their ability to perform at a high level is like riding a roller coaster. There's peaks and there's valleys. And I think your idea, Don, of coming up with a system to try to smooth out the valleys a little bit, to maybe raise those a little bit so it doesn't feel like quite as precipitous a drop-off, I think that's kind of what we have to start to build on. So to answer Dave's question, I wish that I could tell you that it's as simple as having a stronger pregame routine or having a way to keep the kids together and focused on the task at hand in between games. But I think, unfortunately, some of the things that we can do to try to avoid those flat games can be a short-term quick fix.
Sometimes you can see it or feel it coming too, right?
But sometimes I think it's even a bigger picture problem that is contributing to what's going on. So Number one is I think that too many players are in situations where it's so non-competitive that they take playing for granted. If you know you're going to
supposed to
play no
win.
matter what, if you know you're supposed to be in the lineup no matter what, if your performance has nothing to do with your future possibilities and whether you're going to play or not, I think that always sets us up for situations where players can
Put it on cruise control.
kind of mail it in a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And now we can have those situations where a player, mails it in, puts it on cruise control, no matter how competitive the situation is too, because I don't care what your situation is. I don't care how good your team is. Your 3 or 4 best players know they're your 3 or 4 best players. Whether we're, talking, we spend all this time talking about Oklahoma, the 3 or 4 best kids at Oklahoma know they're there.
They're going to be.
They know they're going to be in the lineup. In a situation like that, they have somebody strong enough behind them that they know that if they don't come ready to play more than once in a blue moon, there's a chance that somebody could challenge them. But I think that that's the exception and not the rule. And so I think we have an awful lot of situations where kids go from game to game, tournament to tournament, week to week, knowing I'm going to be the shortstop whether I work hard or not. I'm going to be the shortstop whether I play well or not.
On
I'm
small
going to be
rosters too, right, Tori? A lot of our groups.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the lineup no matter what. So I think that's part of a systematic problem that sets us up for these situations happening more often than we would like. I think the second part of it is, and this is something I've read about, I want us to do a much more in-depth discussion about it on Everything Fast Pitch, but I think so many players now are playing for a lot of the wrong reasons. If I spend any more time watching kids play where the only thing they're worried about is making sure that their parents are happy with how they're playing versus playing because they love playing because they want their team to be successful, playing because it's fun to play, I'm going to have to cry. Because I see it all the time. And I don't get to go to the ballpark as often right now as I have in the past. But over the last 5 years, if I had a penny every single time, after every pitch, after every swing, after every play, if I had a penny for every time the first thing that happens is that player looks in the stands to see how their parents reacted, we wouldn't be asking people to become patrons. We'd be living on phoning this thing in from our yacht in the Bahamas or whatever, because we'd have so much money that we could retire nicely and live off of the pennies.
Right.
And so I think that's part of the problem, is that we have to start to help our kids play the game for the fun of playing it and for the excitement of getting to play. If we had a nickel for every kid who goes out on the field thinking, oh my God, I have to play softball again today, we'd have 2 yachts.
Right.
And we'd own the island in the Bahamas. We wouldn't just be, renting a condo there for a week. And so I think that we have to work on addressing the overall mental approach, the attitude that kids are bringing about the game. And again, if a player's out there thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I have to play again, does that increase the likelihood our team's going to come out flat and not play very well? I don't know for sure, but it certainly seems like it would.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we can get the kids to spend more time playing because they really want to play, working on instilling a lot more of that passion for the game and taking away some of the entitlement and some of the have to play kind of atmosphere that I think I'm seeing more and more, I think that goes a long way towards helping us play to a higher level of intensity, a higher level of enthusiasm, and probably a higher level of consistency on a regular basis. I do like your idea, Don, of making sure that we're creating a really good system that keeps us focused on the task at hand, or I guess gets us focused on the task at hand at the start of the day, and then keeps us focused on it throughout the course of the day. But the reality of it is the playing flat when you know you're more talented than everybody else, or losing a game to a team that you shouldn't be losing to, is, in my opinion, probably 99% mental and 1% everything else. And so whether that mental is distracted because we went bowling in between games instead of thinking about getting ready to play, if it's mental because I went and had a big giant steak dinner and I'm so bloated and all I want to do is take a nap instead of play softball, that could be part of it. If distracted because my best friend is mad because she's not playing and her parents are mad and they're thinking about quitting the team because she doesn't get to play enough. That could be part of it. If it's the entitlement of knowing, well, I'm the shortstop on this team no matter what, I'm just going to be here, I'm going to play my position and nothing's going to ever change that. That might be part of it.
Distractions are tough.
Right. And so I think, trying to create more of an attitude and more of a, we talked about culture on the Everything Fast Pitch podcast this week, more of a culture of excited to play, happy to be on the field, competing for playing time, competing to have as much success as we possibly can, competing with myself to hold myself to the high standard of how well I'm capable of playing instead of playing to the level of the teams that I'm playing against, because we know that's a big part of this problem too. How much of it is human nature for a player? Let's say you've played this team 5 times this year and you've beaten them the first 5. And now you're going to play them for the 6th time. Well, if you shut down 10% or 15% or 20% of your focus because you're so sure you're going to beat them again, all of that I think comes back to the systems that we're putting in place, the culture that we're creating, the attitude that we're instilling, and trying to keep working towards creating a much more get to versus have to and a much more competitive environment so the players are going to be able to rise to the occasion a little bit more.
And Tori, too, depending on which side of the coin that I'm on, I don't want for our group to allow the team that we're playing against to have bragging rights that they beat us.
Right.
It's like, don't let them have a chance to say, oh, yeah, they're a nice team, but we beat them.
Right.
Right. So it's like you got to wake them up. And as you're describing all this, I can remember days where it's like, today's going to be one of those days. I could feel it. I could see it. We're not taking it as serious as we should. This other team's going to have a chance to get us on a day that, 9 times out of 10 they shouldn't. And it's a phenomenon. I don't know.
Right.
But to at least be conscious of it and aware of it and trying to do things to manage it, I think is really good for any of the coaches that might be listening.
Right. Well, and I think, unfortunately, what a lot of us do as coaches is we see what, could potentially be a trap game. We know that there's a chance we could let down. And we think that it's going to be a, what can I do right now to make sure it doesn't happen right now kind of thing. And I think realistically, it's much more of a, we should have been planning for this in the long haul. We should have been working on this from day one. We should have been building this attitude, from the beginning instead of, we've beaten this team 5 times in a row. There's no way we're going to lose to them. Make sure you get your heads right. Make sure you're ready to play kind of speech isn't going to be very effective then. And I think that's what we all do is we all are looking for how can I make sure it just doesn't happen this one time? Or how can I make sure it doesn't happen right now? And the best way to make sure it doesn't happen right now is to be working on this stuff long term, to have an attitude and an approach where it's just not likely to happen, period, or less likely to happen, period. And so, it's something that I think takes a lot of work, takes a lot of foresight.
Just knowing your team and knowing knowing their habit. Is it, or do they have a habit of letting down in the middle of the hot summer sun or start slow in the morning games?
Right.
And then trying to have a routine for it.
Yeah. And that idea, the routine that's going to address it, going to keep it from happening, I think is a whole lot better than worrying about it after the fact. But it's a real thing. One of the craziest things ever, and this, I guess, will tell you how crazy I am. When I was coaching at Tennessee Tech, there was one school in our conference that was usually pretty good, but we beat them all the time. I seriously think my record when I was coaching at Tennessee Tech against the school is something like 27-1.
Pressure's on when you play.
It was, or it might even been more than that. It might have been 35-1. It was like we never lost to them. Even years when we weren't very good and they were pretty good, we still always beat them. But I'll never forget, in my mind, I can remember the game we lost because it was this game. Yeah. It was we already beat them the first 2 games of the series. It's the last game of the weekend. People are thinking about where they're going for dinner, where the homework they need to get done for Monday, whatever it is. We let them hang around, and they beat us in a walk-off in the bottom of the 7th inning. And it still aggravates me.
Right.
And again, it was 1 game out of 30 that we played against that school. But it still happened, and it still is part of this whole thing. And so why did it happen? Well, because we fell trapped into the same trap that we're talking to all our coaches about avoiding now. So start working on creating the right kind of attitude, the right kind of culture, instilling that over and over and over again. The idea that you're playing against the game and not your opponent, that you're playing to see how well you can play and hold yourself to that standard. It drives home the point very, very strongly that it's not about who you're playing. It's about you playing the game the way you're supposed to play it, and start instilling that, creating that system, putting that in place now so that 3 months from now, you don't have to worry about the trap game biting you.
No, I think it's a good thing to talk about for sure. And just like you said, Tori, to have a plan and talk about it.
Yeah.
So because all of us are going to have it. We're all going to be there.
Right. And I'd much rather have us work really hard on the plan in advance than have to be mad about it.
And safeguard.
Right.
Yeah.
So that 20 years later, you're not still going, I can't believe we lost that game. Well, it was just one game. I know. I can't believe we lost it.
You won a bunch, but
yeah, but that one, I don't remember the 27 or 34 or whatever that we won. I don't remember the times that we walked them off or whatever. All I remember is that one game that we
Tori's
lost.
Like, I want one more inning. Give me one more inning.
Yeah. So, but we know it's part of what's going to happen to everybody. So that's going to wrap up number 193. Please make sure you support Anderson Bat Company. Become a patron if you can. Go to the fastpitchprep.com website. Order your Square Cuts training discs there. You can also check out the blog posts and the YouTube channel. And make sure that you send us your questions, comments, ideas. Thank you, Dave, for sending in this question. Coach Don and I love to talk about stuff that we know our listeners are interested in, and the best way to get us that information is everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Tori. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.